Ethan is the president of American Dietetic Association, and Jesse is a former president.
This one?
Well, thank you, Dr. Dan, for the introduction again, and also thank you, Bert, for that longitudinal analysis of dietetics in the United States. What I'm going to do is, he looked at the first 95 years of our profession in the United States, and what I'm going to do now is do kind of a cross-sectional approach, looking at what we're doing right now on education in the United States. I think a lot of us would like to believe that at some point we get it right. We figure out what the educational process is, and then we don't have to do all this tweaking and analysis again. I guess I'm here to tell you that I don't think that'll ever happen. I think we're always going to need to analyze the education that we have and make updates based on, we always fall back to our mission and vision. What do we need to do from an educational standpoint to make sure that what we're inspired to do is to improve the health of the nation through food and nutrition, and also provide the type of educational experience that our dietitians need to be leaders in food and nutrition in our nation. So I don't think we'll ever really get it right. I kind of think of it, I'm a developmental dietitian. I kind of look at an analogy of pregnancy. We've gone through a 95-year-long gestation period or pregnancy, and we're waiting for that perfect baby to be born. I don't think there is a perfect baby. I don't think there is a perfect educational program, but like Bert said, hopefully what we talk about today will give you some information that you can use as you would like. Throw away what you don't think will work in your situation. Maybe use some of the ideas that we've gone through and have discovered over the years and use those for your benefit. I am president of the Academy of Nutrition Dietetics, but my day job, what I do for a living, is I'm a professor of food science and nutrition at Central Washington University, and I've been in my whole career involved in dietetics education, educating dietitians from undergraduate and then postgraduate in our internship, and we also have a master's degree. So I speak from that perspective. Our educational system is based on accreditation. And we have accreditation at the national level so that we have one accrediting body. And the whole idea of accreditation is to provide every academy recognized dietetics program that has been accredited, has gone through a pretty scrupulous process, pretty involved, and looking at peer-reviewed evidence-based information to try to ensure that the process leads to an institution that has in place the education that we think is appropriate to provide them with the tools they need when they get in the field to do what they need to do. And so it's a process that we have an accrediting body that's called the Accreditation Council for Education, Nutrition, and Dietetics, which is a related organizational unit to the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics. And that's their function. They accredit different educational institutions who are doing dietetics training. So this Accreditation Council for Education and Nutrition Dietetics, we call it ARoND. It used to be CADI. Maybe some of you have heard of that previous name. When we changed our name to the Academy of Nutrition Dietetics, we also changed the name of our accrediting body. So ARoND sets standards for entry-level dietetics education and is the accrediting body for all of the different institutions that provide dietetics education in the United States. ARoND is recognized by our U.S. government Department of Education as the entity that meets national standards and is recognized by the Department of Education as the authority on quality nutrition and dietetics education in the United States. So we have to maintain our accreditation by providing a big self-study to the Department of Education in the United States government. the accreditation process is multifactorial in that it's not just a few people doing the accreditation. It's a collaboration of lots of different entities, people, organizational structures. First of all, educators. The educators at each of the institutions are very much involved in the process. They are the ones that are really put in the place of trying to assure our accrediting body that they provide the right education. We also have practitioners because, like Bert said, we have two components to this process. We have the didactic component and we also have the supervised practice component. So practitioners are out there coordinating with our educational units, educational institutions to make sure that there's coordination in what is being taught in the classroom and then what is happening in the practical setting. Also employers, these practitioners are part of some sort of entity, so these employers are hiring these practitioners and eventually they'll be hiring our graduates as well. Regulators are involved in this, and the students and the public are involved. In our ASCEND board, we have public members who help us to make good decisions about what kinds of standards are in our programs. But ASCEND, the accreditation standards, sets the standards, our ASCEND board sets the standards for dietitians, dietitian training, and this educational community, the practitioners are all involved in that process. We had just an update in February of this year to the educational standards. One of the things that we do on a periodic basis is we do what's called a practice audit. In 2010, we did a practice audit where we actually go in and ask practitioners, dietitians, what they're doing on the job site. And then we make sure that we kind of tabulate those and figure out what they're doing. And then once we know what they're doing, we make sure that we have the education in place to train them to do what they're doing, which is kind of in some ways, kind of a backwards way to approach it. But as things evolve, the education has to keep up with what the practice is out there. So we had the practice audit in 2010, and then we made the adjustment to our standards, which came in place in February of 2012. As of June 1 of this year, a couple weeks ago, 26 days ago, all of our educational accredited programs needed to be in compliance with those new standards. So again, we had a real recent tweak or change to our programs. ASCEND has established these policies and procedures so that as the programs apply for a program, either initial or continuing status, that there's a review that uses these new standards so that these new standards are incorporated into changes. Now these standards, educational standards, just reading off the list here, there's central to the accreditation process. The standards are very important, that they need to be met so that accreditation is given to an institution that is trying to educate people who are becoming registered dietitians. There's minimum levels of quality that are defined. The decisions that are made about the program always fall back on these standards. Is this decision we're making about our program, is that going to support the standards, provide training for the standards so that students, when they apply, are out there and using those in their practice setting. These are applied to all schools equally. They're also created by that consortium, that collaboration I mentioned, where we have educators, regulators, practitioners, students, and the public. And then they're revised on a routine basis so that we don't just stagnate. Now, as I mentioned, we have one accrediting body that looks at all the different programs, and we have actually two different credentials. We haven't talked much about the dietetic technician registered, but that is one credential that we have, and that's the result of a 2-year program at what we usually have community colleges have an accredited program where students go through a series of coursework, and then they also have a 450-hour supervised practice experience. So that's one credential we have. The one that we've been talking about mostly is our registered dietitian credential. And to become a registered dietitian, there's really three hoops that the students have to jump through. One is they have to have the didactic training, the classroom training, where they're receiving instruction in all the different areas that Bert mentioned, from biology, chemistry, some social science, some statistics, all those different things are involved in that theoretical background. And then we have the supervised practice experience. So we have the classroom training, the supervised practice. Then the third hoop is they have to pass a national registration exam. So there's those three things that all dietitians have to go through to become a registered dietitian. Now there's actually two different ways to do that we have in our current system. And again, Bert mentioned these, in that one way is to do what's called a coordinated program in dietetics, which coordinates the classroom with the supervised practice. And they're coordinated in a way so that once that person finishes, they have both of the didactic and the supervised practice finished when they have their bachelor's degree awarded to them. So that's one way. The second way is to do the didactic program first and then take the supervised practice next. And from a standpoint of how many schools do that, I think this next slide, this pie diagram, shows you how these programs are divided up. We have 570 total accredited programs in the United States. Of those 570 programs, 47 of them are the Dietetic programs that I mentioned. The rest of them are dietitian training programs. As you can see on this slide, that there's 226 didactic programs, 243 dietetic internships. We have 52 coordinated programs. And the real small little slice at the top is international coordinated programs. We actually have two programs that are out of the United States. One's in South Korea and one's in Mexico. And these are coordinated programs where they coordinate both the classroom and the supervised practice into the same program. Now the ASCEND program standards fall into 5 categories. The standards that ASCEND, our accrediting body, sets. One is excellence, and this is this standard really emphasizes that dietetics programs must ensure that their sponsorship, organization, financial resources, and leadership provide the necessary structure to ensure success. So that when this standard is analyzed, we're asking questions, or ASCEND is asking questions about, do we have all those things in place to make sure that we do have enough resources to provide that training. Second standard is vision. And vision in dietetics programs is articulated in their mission, in their goals, and their objectives and vision. You know, they need to have that in their structure to show that they do have some sort of way to do a continuing assessment and compare those to their standards. A third area is imagination. All dietetics programs curricula must provide a thorough foundation in the foundational sciences and core courses like biomedical, nutritional, behavioral, managerial, and clinical sciences, so that the graduates have that exposure and they can use that when they get out in the field in their professional careers. The fourth one is leadership. All dietetics programs must have fair and equitable policies and procedures that show that they can attract and maintain adequate numbers of faculty who are well prepared to do the instruction, and they'll provide the leadership in these programs. The fifth one's innovation. All dietetics programs must provide adequate resources to support student admission, progression, and personal and professional development, so that when the analysis is done of these programs, to see if there's enough support in place to provide for that personal, professional development and progression through the program for students. Whatever program at an institution is evaluated, there's a set of core knowledge requirements and also a set of competencies that follow one of 5 different areas. One is that there's a scientific and evidence-based practice where there's integration of scientific information and research into practice, so that we often talk about registered dietitians being the conduit, taking that scientific information that comes with scientific investigation, distill that down and put it in a format so that our dietitians can then use it when they're giving guidance to information to individuals in the field. So we take the science and turn it into something that's practical. So that's one of the areas that is an important part of our process. A second one is professional practice expectations, that dietitians we have a code of ethics, we have certain areas of belief about using science and evidence-based practice, and the attitudes are shown in the professional development of our faculty members, and that transfers to the students. Third one is clinical and customer service, that there's a development and delivery of information, products, and services that are very important in this whole process, so that we provide the service in a way that our customers, our clients can use, and they can use it to change their life and improve their health through food and nutrition. Practical management and use of resources is also an important aspect, and then support knowledge, where principles of food science and systems and techniques and food preparation are all part of that core knowledge set and competencies that students receive. Now, a large part of dietetics is practical application. And this is a teaching kitchen at Ceres University, where you see sinks and you see mixers and stoves and all sorts of different facilities that might be in a home kitchen. But this is set up in such a way that the students can use it as a teaching lab. They can use it for mock cooking classes, role-playing, and that sort of thing. So providing practical training in food preparation, the food science, the basic food science is a real important aspect of it, and then also being able to use that in a setting where the students can use it as a practical setting to do teaching instruction. Another area that we're really starting to delve into now is simulations, and we're offering, this guy looks in pretty bad shape, doesn't he? But what we're doing right now is promoting simulations, and we put out a request for proposal to to people in the United States to offer simulation labs that they could be funded for to develop a toolkit so that when these simulations were developed, then they could be sold to other individuals who might want to use them in their institutions. And the idea is that oftentimes when we put our students in the practical setting, it's just by chance whether or not they'll have exposure to certain disease states and certain acuity of care. And by providing simulation labs, we can at least give them some assurance that they have some exposure to different disease states that they'll have when they become professionals. So this is an area that we're trying to develop. I had some photos here that are in this slideshow from the University of Idaho, which is Idaho is a state on the western part of the United States, and I know one of the instructors there, and she's doing a bunch of simulations with her students. So the next few slides are going to show that. The professor is Professor Sian Safei. She's a registered dietitian, assistant professor of nutrition at University of Idaho. And in this slide, you can see on the left-hand side two individuals with a robot who can be programmed to have different blood values and different lab values that the students will look at, and they can actually analyze what's there and come up with some sort of analysis of what sort of therapy that person needs. And then the instructors can view that on a monitor and see how they react to that situation, and then have feedback for them. And they can repeat this as many times as they can with changing lab values to see how that student, or that pair of students in this case, react to that situation. So in this slide, we see Dr. Safai explaining to students what could be happening in a certain clinical setting to give them some guidance about how they might respond to that setting. Now, we didn't have time to show this video, but if you would like to see a YouTube of dietetic simulation, you can go to www.youtube.com and search dietetic and simulation, and you'll get a YouTube video of Dr. Safai and her students working with simulations. Now, the process of becoming an accredited institution in the United States is a 10-year process where the institution that either wants initial or continuing accreditation does what's called a self-study. And this self-study is based on those core knowledge and the values that we mentioned a little bit earlier. The program faculty, the director of the program, will go through the standards and determine where there's strengths, where they have places they could improve upon, and then do a self-study report. And this self-study report is then sent to ARoND, the accrediting body, and then a team of peer reviewers, and this peer review team has at least 2 individuals, one an educator and one a practitioner, somebody who's out in the field. And they'll work with people on the ARoND board and also our academy staff, or the ARoND staff, to review that self-study. And then after that self-study is reviewed, this pair, or at least 2 people, go to the site and actually visit and do tours and do site visits and focus groups with students and faculty and see if they can do some evaluation of how that program is working. Is it there's areas of concern, areas of strength. So again, this is done either initially or after a 10-year period for their continuing accreditation. And at the end of that accreditation, they're either given reaccreditation or initial accreditation, and then for a 10-year period with a 5-year interim review to make sure that they're meeting standards that have changed or anything that needs to be dealt with. Now, we also do some evaluations of the pass rate. If you remember, we said there's 3 things that students have to do to become registered dietitian. They have to do the initial program where they do the classroom work, then they do the supervised practice. Once they have those 2 behind them successfully, then they take an exam. And this national registration exam is given to the students periodically whenever they have all the ducks in a row. And the program and the student is evaluated on the pass rate. For instance, and this is first time take, if they take the test the first time, this is a pass rate. So if they have if the program has 90% pass rate the first time that students take it, the exam, they look at the pass rate over the course of a year or longer, they're given the ARoND gives them recommendations with commendations. If they're 80% or higher, they meet the requirements. If they're below 80%, then they are monitored. Those programs that are accredited are monitored to make sure that that program has stability. This person on the slide right now is Karen Lacey, who yesterday I think Jesse talked about nutrition care process. Karen is kind of the madre of the maternal factor. She wrote the article that defined all this. Karen Lacey's from the state of Wisconsin. Often my students come to me when they graduate and they say, "Oh great, I'm graduating, I'll never have to take another class the rest of my life." And I break it to them slowly and say, well, that's not quite true, because what happens is, to try to maintain our expertise in areas, we do have continuing education requirements, and we require 75 hours of continuing ed every 5 years. And I just went through this process. My 5-year period ended the end of May, So what I did was did what's called a professional development portfolio, where I evaluated what I want to do in the next 5 years looking forward and see what kind of classwork I need to do that. So I went through this process of evaluating my life the next 5 years, put that crystal ball in front of me to determine what I thought I was going to do, and then I came up with some ideas about what kind of coursework or classes or experiences I might need over that 5-year period to meet that 75 continuing ed hours of requirement. And so everybody does that for a 5-year period, 75 hours. And the idea is to keep those people current in their areas, or allow them to go in a direction. If they're going to specialize in a certain area, it gives them a chance to really focus their education over that next period of time. I think Ann mentioned the other day that in many countries we have clinical dietitians or we have administrative dietitians. In the United States, we're graduating students that are entry level in all those areas. So if they want to really concentrate on clinical, if they want to do nutrition support with tube feedings and parental nutrition, they probably are going to need to have a lot more training in that area to be experts. And so they may use their 75 hours over that next 5 years trying to pick up information that would give them some knowledge in that area. I think that kind of ends my part of this. Next, Jesse Pavlinac is going to talk a little bit about the supervised practice aspect of training that we receive in the United States. So Jesse, it's all yours.